I think we should start with the top five
Let's
tight
do it.
ends. I think that'd be good. Because that's tight ends. It's not like receivers or running backs where there's a lot of variations or players to choose from. So this
That
this
is
should
fair.
definitely be a fun and unique little category to break down here.
I love it. I love it. So we're currently posting this on our uh, X page over at Cyclone Central. So let us know if you guys can see those types of things as we are hanging out. So appreciate you guys joining on. We're gonna get into our top five tight ends of all time. I started last week with the wide receivers, or earlier this week, I guess. Don't even know what day it is with this whole Brendan Sorsby situation. But I want you to start with tight ends because you were giving me a
Okay.
little bit of stuff off camera about some of your tight ends you had in your list. So I'm curious to
hmm
see where
Well,
you go with this.
I
And
did change some things around since then, because
he
like
changed
I
some things
said,
around. I
there's
like it. I like
yeah.
it.
So we're gonna start off. Number five for me is gonna be Chase Allen. All right, Chase
Okay.
Allen. Chase Allen. Chase Allen. Was a 5-year player under Matt Campbell. Came in 2017, so his second year. Only had 4 receptions for 40 yards, but then just grew year by year. Racked up more catches, more yards, and by his junior and senior year, played a really big role, not just in the run blocking for Iowa State, but in the pass catching as well. Because Iowa State was notoriously known for their 3 tight ends, those tight ends that they love to use so much. Why? Because they're versatile, they're athletic, they're agile. They can not just, like I said, run block, but pass catch as well. So Chase Allen finished his career with 810 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns, but was known for his long, luscious
Mm,
locks of hair and just
mm.
that cool physique that he had. Fan favorite, loved by all the fans and stuff like that. So number five for me, Chase Allen.
Okay. The Legolas of Iowa State, if you will. That's a good pick. He was very close to number five for me. But I'm gonna take a hard left turn. Number five in Iowa State football history is a guy that will not finish his career at Iowa State. Number five is Ben Bramer. Ben Bramer in 2 seasons had close to 1,000 receiving yards, y'all. I'm gonna say that again. In 2 seasons, had close to 1,000 receiving yards total in an Iowa State uniform. Ben Bramer, in my opinion, is one of the more talented athletes Matt Campbell's ever recruited. He never panned out. They basically refused to throw him the football a lot last year, which was mind numbing to me. I remember so many times in reacting to different games during the Cyclones football season on our Cyclone Kingdom page of just being incensed why they've not thrown Ben Bramer the ball more. Because when they do, good thing happens. Uh, I also put him on number five for the list because I think he's superhuman. The guy had a seizure on the field and came back and scored a touchdown the next week. I mean, it went from I think Ben Bramer just died on the football field in a Damar Hamlin style way to not only is he fine, he's gonna score a touchdown and help us beat TCU. So he's unbelievable. He really is. I think he deserves more respect. I think he's handled himself very well in his transition from Iowa State to Penn State. He stayed very under the radar, which I think has been smart, unlike his quarterback counterpart. And so I think, in at least in my mind, he's gonna be remembered well in a Cyclone uniform. Then again, I don't know what he's gonna do for Penn State or how well he's gonna play, but he's a top five tight end just based on his talent and based on the stats that back that up. So number five is Ben Bramer.
Yeah, no, and that's honestly, I didn't really even think of him because he's, like you said, he's not going to finish his career at Iowa State, but great player, great athlete. Definitely would have been around round 3 or 4 draft pick. If he'd stayed at Iowa State, who knows where I'll
Oh
end
yeah.
up and how this season will go at Penn State. But my number four is going to be, I believe that you pronounce it, Keith Krepfel.
Okay.
1970s guy, 3-year player in the Big Eight. Finished his career with just over 1,400 receiving yards, 16 touchdowns. Got drafted in the 5th round by the Philadelphia Eagles. So obviously neither me or AJ was alive to watch him, but great player. Very Highly thought of by the older generation Iowa State fans, and probably very fun to watch. So number 4, Keith Krepfel.
Yeah, more to come on him in just a couple minutes. But yeah, he's an unbelievable player, and someone from the older, as you said, the older days of Iowa State football that people frankly just forget about because they weren't very good. You got to remember there was some really talented guys on that team.
Oh yeah,
we talked about George Amison when we did our quarterbacks, and it's like, yeah, people forget about it because Iowa State sucked, but at the same time, the stats speak for themselves in a Big 8 where it was very difficult to score points. So yeah, that's a great pick. Number 4 might be a hot take, but number 4 for me is a guy that I think is kind of in between the Dan McCarney and the Matt Campbell era. A guy that was kind of sandwiched in between that people kind of, I think, lost because of a guy you talked about off camera, EJ Bibbs. By the way, honorable mention, EJ Bibbs. I do not have him in the top 5. Number 4 is Colin Franklin. And you might say, Colin Franklin? Wasn't Colin Franklin a wide receiver? He was not. He was a tight end. But people think of him as a wide receiver. I know I think of him as a wide receiver because he was built like a wide receiver. And he caught the ball like a wide receiver. And he had yards after the catch like a wide receiver. Colin Franklin was good. He had 1,000 receiving yards in his career as a tight end in a spread offense. Remember when Paul Rhodes came in, we're going to start the spread offense, and it went horribly wrong. Well, sometimes it worked with Colin Franklin, and sometimes it didn't when we threw bubble screens 17 times a game. So Colin Franklin deserves to be on this list. Like I said, he's built like a wide receiver. He didn't even line up in the slot sometimes. But he caught the ball at an incredibly high rate. Again, similar to what you were talking about with Keith Krepfel, a part of an Iowa State team in an era that wasn't very good. And so people are just kind of like, forget about those guys. No. If we're making an all-time list as we are right now, some of these guys deserve to be on there, and Colin Franklin deserves to be on there. He's number 4.
Yeah, I do not have him in my top 5, but that's not a terrible pick.
Yeah.
Definitely could be a guy who's one of the more forgotten players. But my number 3 is going to be EJ Bibbs, and I know this might be a bit of a hot take as well, but he was only a 2-year player. Just an incredible athlete for his size, for his build. In his 2 years at Iowa State, racked up over 800 yards, 10 touchdowns, and just 84 receptions. I mean, so this was a guy they like to target and get the ball to. So number 3, EJ Bibbs.
I love EJ Bibbs. I think from a talent standpoint, he's one of the better Cyclone football players of that era. So it was so hard to put him on the list, but when you talk about it from a stats perspective, I think these guys kind of clear him in a different way. But I mean, he's got one of the greatest tight end catches in Iowa State history. That one-hand catch, I think it was against Baylor. So he's a great pick. That's a great pick. Number 3 on the list for me is another older Cyclone football player that kind of in that Keith Krepfel era. I can't remember if he was before or after. Mike Bush. Mike Bush is number 3 on the list. His stats are unbelievable, and I'll say what I've said about the running backs and the wide receivers and stuff. If you guys have highlights of Mike Bush, send them our way because I want to see just how good this guy was. Because seeing pictures of him and seeing stats of him, I mean, this guy was a wrecking ball. So, yeah, Mike Bush, I believe he's top 20 all time in receiving yards at Iowa State. So, or top 25, one of those two. But he is a mountain man in a Cyclone era football that was not very good, but he played well. He wore the Cyclone uniform well. There wasn't any transfer portal during the Mike Bush era, so didn't have to worry about him going to a different school. But he deserves respect in this. So now we're getting to some heavy hitters after this, but Mike Bush deserves to be number 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my number 2 is your number 3, Mike Bush. I have Mike Bush at 2. And like you mentioned earlier, a Big 8, hard to score in the Big 8. And so he only had 4 touchdowns, but had over 1,000 receiving yards in his career. And like you said, just an old timer, a guy who was really good at the game. They like to get the ball to. Yeah, I don't really have much else. You did a lot of the talking there, so
Yep.
my number 2 is Mike Bush as well.
Yep. And then my numbers 2 is a guy you mentioned earlier, Keith Krepfel. The reason I have him much higher is if you look at the all-time receiving yards in Cyclone football history, Deshaunte Jones and Quentin Bundridge and these great Iowa State wide receivers, Keith Krepfel has more receiving yards than them, and he's in the same category as them.
Oh, yeah.
So he did work in a Cyclone uniform. So again, send some highlights our way if you guys know Keith Krepfel or have seen him play, or if you're an older Cyclone fan and watched him play live. We'd love to kind of see just what made him great, because the stats are astounding. I mean, he's in the category with, like I said, some of those great wide receivers, some of the wide receivers we talked about last week or earlier this week, of the Todd Blythes and all these guys. Like Keith Krepfel's in that top 10, top 15 with those guys that we consider some of the greatest athletes Iowa State football's ever seen. So Keith Krepfel, even though we've never seen him play, even though we weren't born when he played, he deserves a lot of respect. So he's number 2.
Yeah. So we're at number 1 now. I think I can say with certainty we both have the same number 1 now that we've worked our way down. For me, it's going to be Charlie Kolar.
Yep.
4-year player under Matt Campbell. Came in his freshman year, made a pretty solid impact. 11 catches for 137 yards and 3 touchdowns, with his first touchdown of the season coming against at TCU. And this was kind of like Chase Allen, just developed throughout the years, got better, got 10, 20, 30% better as each year came around. Finished his career with over 2,000 receiving yards and 23 touchdowns. So this was a guy who had the speed, the hands, the agility of a receiver, but was also 6'6", 230, 240, could go out and run blocks. So number 1, Charlie Kolar.
Yep. He's one of the best pass catchers in Iowa State history. Just period. You talk wide receiver, running back, tight end, Charlie Kolar's in that conversation. When you get multiple NFL deals as a tight end 2 or tight end 3, you're a very valuable resource to an NFL team. Charlie Kolar just signed with the Chargers, so I'm not a big fan of that as a Chiefs fan. But he is continuing to play and prove his role on an NFL squad. And that speaks volumes in an era where tight ends, you have to be a certain type of build and a certain type of guy in order to make it in the NFL.
Yep.
Charlie Kolar has made that the case, and it's because of what he did at Iowa State. You think about that 2020 season, which, if not for 2024, is probably the greatest season that Iowa State football's ever seen, where they go to the Big 12 championship and then monkey stomp Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl. Charlie Kolar had some of the biggest catches of his life in that season. And then in 2021, backing it up with some great catches as well. So one of my favorite Cyclones, kind of, paired with Brock Purdy and Breece Hall. We kind of think of those as the trio that kind of made, when you think about Iowa State kind of ascending to that top 15, top 10 team that they were in 2020 and 2021, it was because of that three-headed monster. You had Brock Purdy, you had Breece Hall, and you had Charlie Kolar. And if only the wide receivers had kind of panned out more. I know we talked about Xavier Hutchinson a little bit earlier this week. Maybe we talk about Iowa State football a little bit differently. Maybe they do win that Big 12 championship. Maybe Isheem Young doesn't get kicked out for targeting. Just all these things of that, what that season was about. Charlie Kolar is a mainstay in there. When you think about that season, you think about Charlie Kolar in that black Iowa State uniform, which, remember, debuted in 2019 or 2020 when Brock Purdy first came on the scene. And we'll never forget him because of that. So I'm rocking the black quarter zip Iowa State sweater today in honor of Charlie Kolar. So he's a great player, and I'm cheering for him, except when the Chiefs play the Chargers. So.
Yep. And honestly, I think, and you're probably not going to like when I say this, but I think the Chargers are a really good fit for him. The style, the offense they run, I think he's going to do really well there.
Yeah.
So that's our list of the top five greatest Iowa State tight ends of all time. So now,
and that concludes the offense. So we'll have some defensive players coming soon, and you might be thinking, top 5 offensive linemen. That's really tough because there's not
Yeah.
really a lot of stats to find
No,
about offensive
yeah,
linemen,
that's-
and we don't know anybody outside the people that we've seen actually play.
yeah.
So we're gonna kind of bypass that and go straight to defense. So if you're an offensive
Mhm.
lineman at Iowa State that's played at Iowa State, we respect you. Don't worry about it. Thank you for wearing a Cyclone uniform. But yeah, so that concludes offense. We'll put up those top fives on our X page soon.